lucky enough to drive this car in a kind of more off-road setting, and it did really well. And I literally... Welcome to Drive Culture. I'm Jonathan Rivers, and today we have the 2024 Honda Pilot TrailSport. And I'm going to tell you why this is one of the most off-road capable yet user-friendly SUVs on the market today. We're going to go over the exterior, the interior, the powertrain, and of course, take it for a drive. So if this is content you're after, or you're new to the channel, please click that bell to subscribe to come back for more. And with that, let's get after it. All right, so let's deep dive into the exterior of this car. So immediately you'll notice this color, and if you haven't seen this before, it was a new color launched first on the Pilot TrailSport. It's called Diffuse Sky Blue Pearl. And I don't know, I like it. It's baby blue, kind of like Smurf blue. I really like it. Let us know down in the comments what you guys think. Would you actually get this color for this car? It is exclusive to the TrailSport trim though, so if you have it, people will know right away that you're going for that off-road rugged look and feel. So at the front of the vehicle, this is the 4th generation of the Honda Pilot. So it's gone through this evolution. It kind of started like a more traditional mainstream 3-row SUV. The 2nd gen went much more boxy, right? If you remember what that design looks like. The 3rd gen then kind of went back and toned it down to be more of a, traditional 3-row SUV. And then here we are with the 4th gen, which now has gone back to a little bit more, not so much boxy like the 2nd gen, but a little bit more sharp and a little bit more refined. I think it looks really, really good. Up front, with this being the TrailSport trim, there's some cool accents. The grille is blacked out. It's got a lot of openings, functional cooling, looks really good. Has a signature TrailSport badge up front. So the color for TrailSport is orange. So you're gonna kind of see some of those details, not only on the badges on the outside, but also when we get inside the interior. But the TrailSport is kind of like the middle trim for Pilot, a little bit towards the top. So with that, it's got some great features. Doesn't have everything. You got to step up and get the touring trim for that. But for TrailSport, it does have a lot of good features. Things like a full surround view camera, so you can actually see that above the Honda logo. And what's cool is it not only a front camera, there's a washer too. So again, the idea is if you're doing some off-road driving or mud or snow is flinging up on the front of the car, you can actually wash it away with just basically initiating the wipers inside the car. So that's a really nice touch. Actually have that for the front and the rear. There's some parking sensors up front as well, full LED headlights. Again, I think this Pilot is probably one of the best looking of the 4 generations of Pilot thus far. So make our way down the side. Immediately you're gonna notice the wheels and tires on this thing. Being a TrailSport and off-road rugged trim, it has true all-terrain tires. I mean, I don't know if you're capturing it from the camera, but it just gives it a good stance, right? It makes it look like a true off-road vehicle. So these are 265, 60R, 18-inch wheels, right? So the idea with off-road is you're gonna have actually a slightly smaller wheel and a more beefier tire. But what's really cool about these wheels is not only are they like a dark metallic gray color, but they actually have the name TrailSport like stamped into the aluminum. So that's a nice little touch, looks really good. And again, I think it lends to the overall kind of off-road like vibe for this car. So as we keep going, there's lots of like gloss black accents like the mirror caps, the door handles. This car comes with the roof rails as well. So everything that kind of lends towards that usability and yet at the same time that off-road functionality. Again, same wheel and tire setup in the back, so it's a squared setup. But really, as we get to the rear of the vehicle, it definitely might be one of my favorite views because I like what they did is they actually spelled out the model name in big bold letters across the top. So you still have the traditional Honda emblem, but below that in black it just says Pilot. And again, instead of just a little candy bar badge, I think that's the way to go. Again, kind of gives it that rugged image. Tell us down in the comments below, are you into that? Some manufacturers have done a lot of variations recently where they either spell out the brand name or the model name. Here I think it works really well, so let us know your thoughts down below in the comments. But again, a cool LED taillight design, kind of unique to this car. You have a little kind of silver garnish down below, those parking sensors I talked about. And again, with that, surround view camera, like I said, you have a backup camera here, and it also has that camera washer. So again, I think that's a really cool feature. But with this being the TrailSport trim, it truly has some additional off-road capability and things built in. So, we were talking about the wheels and tires before. It has roughly an inch increase in ride height over the other Pilot models. So it's got different suspension, it's lifted up a little bit, it's got the better all-terrain tires, but it also comes with things like this standard trailer hitch. So if that's something you're into, you actually hook things up to it to tow. It does have a 5,000-pound towing capacity, so I mean that's pretty good for this segment. But what's really cool about this integrated trailer hitch is that there's actually these recovery points built into it. So if you ever got stuck, God forbid, then you could actually hook right into this trailer hitch to have yourself pulled out. On the same token, at the front, look, I didn't get under the car. I'm not going to get to that level of detail, but up front, under that front fascia, there's also a recovery point built in there as well. So there's that. There's actual skid plates down below that cover things like the oil pan, and so that's really nice that they built all that into the car to truly make it off-road capable. So you'll see a little bit of that when we get to the drive, but before that, let's go ahead and wrap up the exterior and let's head inside. All right, we're inside the Honda Pilot TrailSport, and again, if you saw the exterior portion, you saw that we talked about the orange coloring for TrailSport, and it's more prevalent here in the interior because it's everywhere. You're going to see it on the contrast stitching on the steering wheel, the door panels, here on the center dash display, the seats, the center console armrest, and then even you're going to see the TrailSport logo stitched in orange into the headrest. So that's kind of a nice touch, right, to have all that in there. And it kind of, helps to break up the interior color, which is black. So if you're going to get TrailSport, this is the interior for it. So doesn't matter what exterior color you get, this is the interior color for TrailSport. Now, on the other Pilot trims, of course, there's other interior color variations, but this was the theme for TrailSport, and some of that even has to do with, just how they package the whole design together, because even the floor mats, they're the all-weather kind, and they say TrailSport in them in orange. And again, that's true for the front and the second row, so it's just kind of this whole theme for the TrailSport. But let's talk about overall design real quick for the Pilot. So again, in the 4th generation, it was a complete redesign. And it was a significant upgrade, right? They got lots of new materials, premium touch points. I mean, most pieces in this car are, soft to touch, which is nice. Really where it matters, is some really good touch points and some good gear. There is some good technology and features on this car. Like I said, it's not the Touring, so you don't get every feature, but right in front of you, you don't get a full digital instrument cluster. That's reserved for the Touring trim, but you do get a 7-inch color screen that's customizable. You can scroll through it. It looks good. Again, I think it would be great to have the full digital instrument cluster, but again, you got to pay more money and you got to get that on the Touring trim. Here in the center display, you got Honda's 9-inch color touchscreen, which is a nice unit. It's good resolution. It does come with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto wireless, so that's nice. Again, down here, you have a place to put your phone, and there's a wireless charge pad on this trim too. Of course, there's other connectivity. There's a USB-A and C for charging, but it's nice that CarPlay can be done wirelessly as well. But again, there's some good premium features in here as well for TrailSport. So you got things like memory seating. The seats are comfortable, adjustable. There is lumbar support on the driver's side, which is always a bonus. You do have power folding mirrors, which is nice. They fold in with the click of the lock on the remote key fob, or there's a button here to basically manually close them at any time. For their steering wheel, it's actually a heated steering wheel, and it's down here in the center. So Tell us down in the comments below. Are you one that has to have a heated steering wheel for you? Is it a must? And also tell us what you think about the position of this. Sometimes the buttons here in the center console or things like that, but I don't know, it's kind of nice that it's like right here in the center of the wheel. It's easy access. Of course, there's 3-stage heated seats, but there are no ventilated seats on the TrailSport trim. So again, let us know down below if that's kind of a deal breaker for you. For me, ventilated seats are, a nice to have. Heated seats are a must. Again, you got push button start. The HVAC controls are pretty simple. It's nice that there's physical buttons and knobs to control stuff. Even for the audio, there's a physical volume knob and power knob. So I like that kind of stuff. But again, with it being a Pilot and having a lot of functionality, it's nice. They have this kind of open tray here in the dash right in front of the passenger. And that's something that I believe was on the 2nd generation Pilot that they brought back for this 4th generation. So it's just a nice little cubby, extra space. There's cup holders everywhere. There's, massive door pockets. You got huge cup holders down here in the center console area. And then next to it, this is all your controls for the transmission. So in typical Honda fashion, you got this kind of push button scheme going on here. I think it's easy to use. I know there's some people that don't like this style or, wish that there was some kind of palm rest or something to hold on to. But for me, the push button is fine. I get used to it. Behind that, though, you've got electronic parking brake, the brake hold function, and your drive mode switch. In the Pilot, there's actually 7 different drive modes. So there's something for everybody here as far as like customizing. So, starting at the top, you got like a sport mode, which, I know that's not what this car is for, but if you wanted a little bit firmer, heavier steering, a little bit faster acceleration, you could dial it up to sport. There's normal mode, there's econ mode, which is gonna, dial things back, give you better fuel efficiency. There's a snow mode, right? So when you're in really bad inclement weather, it's going to adjust the torque and the traction. We haven't got to the powertrain yet. We'll come up on that and talk about it in a sec. But there's also a trail mode, which, again, if you switch into trail mode, it's going to change how the vehicle behaves in things like dirt and sand and mud, knowing that you may have less grip. The all-wheel drive torque vectoring system is going to adjust for that. And I don't know if you can see here, but on the center display, all of a sudden in trail mode, it brought up what Honda calls their Trail Watch camera system. So to me, I thought this was a really, really smart move because basically they use the surround view camera system and allow you to use that when you're going up hills at a slow speed to see what's on the other side. And it might sound gimmicky, but it actually works. So we'll see if we can actually test that out during our drive today. From there, we got a sand mode. So this is really when you're in some loose sand, some deep sand. Again, it's going to change the algorithm that the car says, okay, this is how I have to distribute power and torque and hopefully get you out of the sand pretty quickly. And then lastly, there's even a tow mode. So again, the idea is, you've got your standard trailer hitch, right? And then you got whatever you're towing behind you. Here, it's going to change things like it automatically turned off the low speed braking control, right? Because it knows you have a trailer behind you. And again, it's going to change the driver characteristics of the car. So I know that was a lot. That's a lot of drive modes. Outside of that, behind that switch, you got an idle stop kill switch on and off, and you also have a hill descent control button. So the idea there is if you're going down a very steep hill and you kind of want to maintain a kind of consistent speed, you can basically turn that function off, and without even modulating the brakes, the vehicle will kind of keep a good speed and you give you a lot of confidence as you're kind of rolling down that hill. So last couple things I'll hit before we jump into the second and third rows is the other nice thing, and I'm really glad they added this into the TrailSport, is that this car has the full panoramic moonroof, and it's a power shade that closes and opens, but the actual glass roof can tilt and open rather large opening as well. So I think that's a really smart move. It's one of the few vehicles in the class that has that, so it's really good. The only thing, again, you guys know me by now, I like my music. I wish this trim had the 12-speaker Bose premium sound system. It only has a 9-speaker sound system, which, again, to be fair, it's pretty powerful and sounds good, but I wish it had the Bose. That would have been one feature I wish it had. So with that, let's quickly check to see what the second and third rows look like. All right, here we are now in the second row of the Honda Pilot TrailSport. Real quick before I get into the seating configuration and things like that, let's just talk about space. So I'm actually in my, the front seat is in my actual driving position. So based on that, and again, I'm about 5'10", there's plenty of space in here. I mean, my God, I got tons of leg room, knee room, tons of headroom here. So obviously, this is a big vehicle, but there's going to be no complaints about space back here. There's large cup holders back here. It's nice. There's these manual window shades here on both the driver and passenger side. So if it gets too bright, that's nice. You do have these kind of map pockets back here, but also, and it's a small detail, Honda basically puts in these other little pockets in here that are supposed to be able to fit your cell phone. They're actually shaped like the size of a brick iPhone or an Android phone. So that's kind of interesting that you have a special pocket for that. Back here you do have rear HVAC controls, so it's a full LCD screen. You can change your controls and functions back here in the second row. That's really nice. You do have two USB-A charging ports back here, as well as a 115 volt socket. So that's kind of cool too. You can basically open that up and plug something in for full power. But talking about the seats, so other trims of the Pilot are actually like a 8-passenger setup. And in certain trims, that center row, it kind of makes it look like a bench seating. That center seat can actually be removed, and on certain trims, it can actually fit into the back storage compartment, which we'll get to in a second. But the TrailSport doesn't have that. So the TrailSport is exclusively a 7-passenger version of the Pilot. So let us know down in the comments below, is that a deal breaker for you? Does it have to be 8-passenger? Are you totally okay with this style, which, they call captain's chairs, right? Because you basically, each side, I've got my own kind of pull down armrest here. That's true for the seat on this side as well. And then basically, you don't get any kind of center console for the second row. It's essentially a nice kind of step up to get into the third row. So again, if you don't need that 8-passenger capability, this is a pretty nice way to package a 7-passenger vehicle. But let us know your guys' thoughts down below. Last thing I'll say is, as reference, I do have a child seat here in the second row with me. And again, that's in a pretty good position for where the front passenger is. So again, like I said, whether you're an adult or whether you got kids back here, you're gonna have plenty of space for them. Now, with that, I'm going to try this circus trick of hopping into the third row just to give you a quick idea of how much space I have. And it is worth noting that the second row seats here can actually move back and forth. So there's a pull bar and you can slide forward. That's a lot. All right. And you can slide back, and that's probably a lot. So I'm going to leave it kind of at a middle. I think this is actually the default positioning of the second row. So let me hop into the third row now so you can see if I actually fit. So there we go, and I'm in the back. I gotta lift up my headrest. So now I'm in the third row of the Honda Pilot TrailSport, and okay, to be fair, still really good headroom, actually. I think I was more worried about that, but no, there's tons of headroom. There's a window cut out back here, so I don't feel claustrophobic. I don't have a ton of knee room and leg room, but I'm not squished either. And then quite frankly, since this middle seat doesn't exist, I mean, I think the passengers in the back, it's nice. You can almost stretch out your leg back here. There is 2 massive cup holders on my side, another USB-A charging port back here as well, and that's true on both sides. So you got 4 cup holders, 2 charging ports in the third row. Tell us if that's what you need, or if you're even going to fit an adult back here. I think you could probably fit 2 adults in here for a short trip comfortably, but anything longer than that, you might want to just leave the kids back here. So with that, let's go ahead, check out the rear cargo area, and we'll move on from there. All right, here we are. We have the tailgate up. It is a powered tailgate, which is nice, both by the remote and by the button here. But I wanted to show you because Pilot has a lot of functionality and usability to the rear cargo space. So you do have this flat floor that's carpeted, right? Makes it level, and it's not too high of a lift in. I mean, you can probably get things in here pretty easily. But what's nice about this tray is you can lift it up and completely remove it. It's nice. You can just, it's pretty easy. It's not too heavy. that gives you a lot of space. What's nice though is the way it's built in is you go in and drop it in, and it kind of folds and fits in there, and so you still have extra space. The cool thing about it though is, if I pull it out one more time, is it's actually reversible. So it's carpeted on one side and it's plastic on the other side. So again, if you got wet, goods or snow boots or something like that, you could put the plastic side in, and you can do that whether it's up at the top position or the bottom position. So that's always been some really good Honda packaging that they've done, and this Pilot continues with that tradition. Lastly, I'll show you for the third row seats, they're not power. They are a manual kind of pull latch here to fold them flat. So I'll show you real quick. It is kind of a 60-40 split even in the third row seats, but pretty much you pull this off, comes off a little Velcro strap here, and you pull it, it drops the headrest, and then just with one quick push, it falls forward. And so that makes it really easy to push the third row down. I'll even do the other side. Quick demo. So it's flat. I mean flat. There's no kind of angle to it. And, again, I would say roughly, cargo volume like this configuration's like in the mid 50s for the cubic feet. So you got some really good space back here. Of course, the second row seats could fold flat as well. But again, this gives you plenty of space to, do your Home Depot runs or go to Best Buy or whatever like that. So that's kind of the rear cargo space. Lastly, let's talk about the Powertrain engine, and then we'll take it for a drive. All right, here we are inside the Pilot TrailSport. And so before we take it for a drive, let's quickly talk about the powertrain and drivetrain. So for this 4th gen Pilot, Honda actually made an all new V6. Yes, all new. It's not the old, the code name was J35, the previous engine V6. It is an actual all new engine, and they had to do that to meet very strict emission regulations moving forward in the future. So in doing so, it's an all new engine. It makes a little bit more horsepower, so it's still a V6. It makes 285 horsepower and 262 foot-pounds of torque, which is basically a carryover, but you do get a little bit more grunt than the last engine. But it definitely drives a little different than the last V6. It sounds a little different. It's good. It's good. It takes some getting used to, because the other engine was used in so many Honda and Acura products for years that if you're really familiar with that V6, you will notice that it actually is a new engine. So made it to that engine. The only transmission choice is a 10-speed transmission, which is really good, really refined. It does have paddle shifters here for you to switch between the gears using those. And again, the level of change will be adjusted by the drive mode that you're in. Again, this isn't a sports car, so I don't know how often you're going to use the paddle shifters, if at all, but it's nice that they're there. The other thing is that while there are some trims of Pilot that do have just front wheel drive, the TrailSport is only all-wheel drive, and they call it IVTM4. That's Honda's name for their torque vectoring all-wheel drive system. And yes, it does really have that capability, right? And specifically for TrailSport, it actually has its own specific tuning, knowing that if you are going off-roading and a wheel gets up off the ground, you're going through some V ditches, you're doing some pretty heavy stuff, it can basically communicate using intelligent control to say, okay, I need to send more power to that wheel because the other one's off the ground, and it kind of works its magic. And after like trying it in a few occasions where you really are on the verge of almost getting stuck, the car just kind of sits there, you put it in trail mode, and it kind of figures itself and digs its way out. So that is pretty cool. So with that, that's the powertrain. Let's go ahead and take it for a drive. All right, here we are about to drive the Pilot TrailSport. So I'm not doing off-roading, I'm not going anything crazy like that, but there are some pretty good roads here that have a lot of undulations, up and downs, some pretty steep hills too. So it gives a sense of off-roading, right? And we're just gonna see how the Pilot TrailSport does. So I'm gonna head off now, get in front of traffic. So again, I'm driving in normal mode, and right off the bat, I mean, yeah, the car, it feels really good. It's, it feels like it's got plenty of power with the V6 engine. Kind of right away, I feel like the NVH, right? Like how quiet and comfortable the car is pretty good. Now, you're gonna hear some rattling and maybe see me moving around a lot, but some of that, again, happens to be the road that I'm driving on. Like, again, I'm running into a little traffic up ahead here, but this is a pretty aggressive road. Honestly, the area that we're in, it's like right near the coast, and this road like kind of is falling apart. Like it keeps the earth keeps shifting it and moving it around, so it's really created this crazy drive. And like I said, I mean, this is kind of a good road to be on with the TrailSport, because one of the other things that I really wanted to test out and try was the fact that this car has those all-terrain tires, right? So I mean, usually all-terrain tires are loud, they're noisy, they kind of make the ride worse a little bit, right? But honestly, I mean, if I did a blindfold test and put someone in this car, I'm not sure they'd be able to tell that it has the all-terrain tires. Like the ride comfort's really good, the ride's good. Now, I mean, there is nothing like an adaptive suspension in the car, so it's not like I can make it softer or adjust it by the drive mode, but just fundamentally, like, the ride quality on this car is pretty good. Steering is a pretty good weight. It's a little light, but again, like I said, this isn't a sports car. It's a big SUV. But again, I think the power in this car is really good. I mean, it doesn't take much to get it up to a pretty good speed. I'm driving right about 50 miles an hour right now, and so when you think about how big this car is, it's pretty quick given its powertrain. I would say roughly maybe like sub 7 seconds, 0 to 60. Like, it's pretty quick. Like, actually, for a big SUV, it's probably quicker than you think it is. But again, you're not necessarily going to be winning any stoplight races either. But yeah, it has plenty of power to merge into traffic, again, pass on the freeway. You're definitely not going to run into any of those issues here, I think. Yeah, again, for me, I think, here, I'll get into it a little bit. Yeah, I mean, even that sound, like I said, it doesn't sound like the old V6, but it definitely has the grunt of the old V6, and it still has that Honda growl, but it's just different than the previous engine. So it sounds good to me. Again, I'm in normal. If I play with the drive modes here a bit, there is a sport mode. Again, it changes the steering a little bit. It's still a little light in this setting, but it does admittedly get heavier when you change it in a sport mode. And I can already tell it's trying to like keep the RPMs at a slightly higher range. And if I get into it, well, there you can actually tell it actually changed the engine note, right? It's, again, they call that active sound control, right? Where they kind of, create some additional sound, enhancing the sound with, the audio of the vehicle. They definitely are using that in the sport mode, but not to bad effect. I think it sounds pretty good, actually. So, credit to them. We're going to go ahead and turn around here, but yeah, the sport mode in this car, for all intents and purposes, is somewhat sporty. So, yeah, I'll give them credit. We're going to go ahead and just loop around here. So, let's go ahead. We'll try to switch it back into some of the other drive modes. So, I went to normal. Now we're going to try econ mode just for fun. Let's see how that works out. Pulling out into traffic. So, even on our acceleration, you can tell that sound was dialed back now in econ mode. But I mean, honestly, there's 40 miles an hour with very little, I'm not accelerating very hard. So again, even in econ mode, surprisingly, you get pretty good acceleration. Now you do get a little econ graphic in the 7-inch color instrument display up front, and there is a little green bar that comes over the speed to like let you know that you're driving more efficiently. But again, it's probably there to eke out a little bit more, miles per gallon. I'm not sure you're going to get that much more driving in that mode, but it's there. And again, the other modes are probably not meant for the roads I'm driving on, because like I said, there's a snow, a trail, a sand, a tow mode, so not going to switch into those, but just even back into normal mode. And again, the Pilot feels really good. It feels, I know it's going to sound crazy, but rather light, given how big and probably, and the actual weight of the vehicle. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with the actual steering in the car. But no, it's a really good driving car. The NVH is really good. Now, if you do pay up and step up into something like the Pilot Elite, the top trim. So Touring and then Elite is all in. If you're in those trims, you're gonna get even more features, and there's even better NVH. So the car is gonna be even more quiet, and you're also gonna get again, just a better ride quality because it doesn't have the all-terrain tires. Again, not that it's bad here in this car, but on the other, like the high-end trims, they get 20-inch wheels and normal normal all-season tires. So that's definitely going to be a smoother, better setup. At some point, maybe we can do a comparison and drive one of those vehicles as well. But again, right now, like, it kind of, like I said, this isn't what I would have expected, an all-terrain tire to drive and feel like. So again, kudos to the engineers, the magic they did to be able to pull this off and still have some level of comfort and usability, compared to the standard all-season tire. So coming up on some pretty big hills and undulations here, and yeah, again, while I'm moving around a little bit, again, the car is still handling all these bumps, no problem. Yeah, I don't know if you just heard that. I mean, this road is pretty beat up. So I mean, in some cases, I'm not joking, you probably could get a wheel to come off, and honestly, if you were driving at speed on some of these parts, you would catch air. I mean, that's how big some of these dips and hills are here. But I mean, this car handles it like no problem. And again, I have been lucky enough to drive this car in a kind of more off-road setting, and it did really well. And I mean, I literally got up in the air, heard some stuff flying around. But yeah, I mean, the car is good, and it handles these roads really well. And even if you take it to an off-road trail, Honda, has said that it'll handle the majority of the trails in the U.S. Now, there's obviously some really hardcore trails that, it may not be rated for, but the majority of your standard trails, this is more than enough. So anyway, again, let us know down in the comments below. Are you going trail sport? Are you going off-road rugged? Or are you going to try to go touring elite and get all the features and bells and whistles? Let us know down in the comments below. With that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this drive. All right, guys, that's a wrap. What do you think of the Honda Pilot TrailSport? Is it really rugged enough for you? Is it really have all the capability and usability that you and your family needs? Let us know down in the comments below. Again, thanks for coming. If you're new to the channel, again, please click that bell to subscribe to come back for more great content from Drive Culture. And with that, we'll see you at the next episode.